Straight face. Okay, don't laugh at that.
We're not
All
recording.
Right. God damn it. All right. Welcome to the Two Fat Foodies show, where we debate cuisine, recipes, and goodies. Oh, wrong podcast. Sorry. This is the Straight Red Card, and we are going to cover the Mexico versus USA or USA versus Mexico game, the Nations League final. I'm actually starting to sound like Max Bretos the way I'm talking right now. So I'm going to chill it down just a bit. The soccer OG. Yeah, you know, Max is actually at the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for him. He got a sweet, that son of a gun. All right. So, wow. I guess is the first word I got. Wow. What a game. Greg finally did something somewhat unpredictable. I mean, not totally. I mean, a lot of people have said Greg should use a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3 or a, you know, all the versions of three guys in the back. And then he went and did it. And, you know, it ended up working out for him. But
in the long run, yes.
I wasn't shocked, but it made both of our preview videos for Mexico made us look like we just didn't see it coming at all, because both of us
as per usual, I was spot on with being wrong. So
well,
I said I posted. I'm like, one of these days I'll get it right.
What nitwit in his right mind would have predicted a Ream, Brooks, McKenzie back three? Who had that? I want to see it. Is it on? If they had it, they should have bet on Vegas, or you know, if that line's applicable in Vegas. I don't know if it is, but yeah, having Ream back there and no Miazga at all this whole tournament shocked me.
I don't understand why he has to play Ream at this point, because McKenzie has played left back he played there for the Union. I'm sure he's going to be at least good enough as left back, and we could still have Miazga in there, and we wouldn't have Ream. And again, we've defended Ream, not necessarily his inclusion in the roster, but we've defended him before.
During his whole career.
We've
defended him. Yeah.
Of late, we've been saying, why is he there? You know, we like the guy, but man, he was never fast to begin with.
He was never fast afoot to begin with, and now he's 34. All right. And those twitch muscles, they're tightening up, and he just doesn't have the foot speed. Not that, yeah, the twitch muscles, whatever I said.
No, I said more like stiff muscles.
Okay. But it's not like Miazga's a burner. But as you said, you could have moved McKenzie, who made a big boo-boo in the beginning of the game. You could have moved him to left center back and had Miazga. Yeah, Miazga could have played right center back, you know?
Yeah.
And that would have solved, I think, a lot of issues. But Miazga's done something, because he is not in Greg's good light right now. And I don't know what it is. I haven't been at the training sessions. You haven't either.
No, I think McKenzie came out gunning against the Swiss, and so he carried him over to the Honduras, did well there, and then carried him over to Mexico and floundered there. So yeah, I just think it was unfortunate that McKenzie on his chance, or unfortunate for Miazga, that McKenzie took his chance and capitalized.
Right. And still, we change the formation to a 3-4-3, but tactically, it was still mostly unproductive for large portions of the game. Dest and Pulisic not really a part of the story for a whole chunks of the game.
Well, for Dest, he wasn't in the picture the entire game. He got subbed off, and I don't know if he contributed one decent play or move. I mean, he was a ghost. His touches were hard, passes were not there. He just maybe the fatigue after playing 2 straight games wore down on him. I don't know.
I don't know, but I do sense something, and maybe it's just me, but I think other people have mentioned, I think Pete's mentioned this before, but Dest seems to feel like he's too big for this. I don't know. I get this sense of arrogance from him sometimes, and I watched him walk during the game when he should be running on a few occasions. And I don't know. I hate to say that because he's a young kid and I don't want to put that burden on him, but I just didn't feel like he gave us all yesterday. Like he was kind of above it.
Let's call it for what it is. I mean, we called out Pulisic and Reyna when they were moping around in earlier friendlies.
Yep.
Dest simply wasn't there. He wasn't
there
at all there. His game against Switzerland, he had some chances, but his defensive woes were present. He wasn't overly present in the Honduras game. This could boil down to more of just how to use Dest. And this could be a Berhalter issue. You know, in the first two games he was playing as pure back, but also being required to get up and down. This game he played more of a wing back, but just wasn't clicking. Wasn't there.
Nope. It wasn't clicking. And you could say for the Pulisic thing, where Pulisic's not actually getting any touches. I don't know how many touches he got in the first half, but it was minimal. And you could say he's not getting them because the tactics are wrong. Like, we're not finding a way. Or they were man-marking him. I get it. They followed him wherever he went. But still, you've got to find a way to get your best player, which is debatable after this, who the best player is, Reyna or Pulisic. But you've got to find a way to get the ball to his feet. In Dest's case, he would get the ball and he would either try to do too much or he didn't know what to do with it. And defensively, he was still somewhat of a liability.
You're asking how do you get Pulisic involved? Reyna was checking back all the way back to the 18 a lot of the times throughout the game. He was hustling, he was getting back there, and that could have been due to tactics as well. You know, you look at the set up, and maybe it was supposed to be a 3-4-3 or whatever. But I felt Reyna was checking back into that midfield a lot. But quite frankly, I also thought Sargent was checking back a little too far into that midfield as well. So there was a lot of. I guess I really couldn't look at the game and figure out exactly what the overall game plan was because once Reyna left, once he was subbed off, Pulisic appeared had more freedom to roam around the midfield. Not saying that caused it, but he did. Once Reyna, our one of our best attacking options of the night, left the pitch, maybe Pulisic woke up. I don't know.
Might be, because certainly when you replace Reyna with Legit, which I found very odd.
No. Reyna was replaced with Weah. Legit replaced Ream, forcing Acosta back to left back.
Okay, hold on. Legit came on for Reyna in the 82nd minute.
Did it come in at the same time? Because, I mean, Weah...
Literally. Adams came in for Ream, but played center, holding mid. Cannon came in for Yedlin in the 105. But in the 82nd, Legit came in for Adams came in for Ream. So that
who'd Weah come in for then?
Weah came in for Dest.
Okay, never mind. Okay, you're right.
But he got shifted to right forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we both make mistakes in the last 10 minutes here. 5 minutes, actually, because you're right. Reyna was on the same side as Yedlin, who, by the way, played really well. We'll get into player ratings in the next show. But tactically, things were still unproductive with what you would consider to be our two best players. Now I'm not sure they're the two best players. I think Reyna is now in that category with the Dest and Pulisic, at least on paper.
Sure. I mean, hell, just looking at that game, obviously McKinney is in the front run too. That was a hell of a match for him.
Yes.
I will say, I'm starting to think, not starting to think, I've thought about this for a bit, but we've talked about the 4-4-2 options rather than playing a 4-3-3 or some variation of such. But I don't think the 4-3-3 is necessarily getting the most of our best players. The Pulisic, the Dest, the Reynas. I'm and I know I joked around about the possibility, but I really kind of starting to believe that the 4-2-2-2, the empty bucket of Bradley, could serve our team better.
You could.
So you put like a McKinney and Adams, or McKinney and Musa, or depending if Adams is not healthy, as our sitting back, or the bottom of the bucket, if you will. You put Reyna and Pulisic ahead of them, and you put two strikers, Sarge and Pfok or DK, throw any of the three in there. And you just have Reyna and Pulisic have the free run of anywhere. It opens the opportunity for our backs to push up into the attack, but then that also gives our two shared eights some more defensive responsibility to cover back for them if they get caught out. So I don't know.
That would be a very Bob Bradley thing to do, and I wouldn't be opposed to it. But the more and more I think about it, and I think if anybody listened to our shows 6 years ago before we retired and came back, would know I hate a back three. Hate it. But I don't hate the idea, the way we're set up right now, of a 3-5-2. I really don't I don't have any problem with that if it's done well. And I think it could work. Now, we play the 3-4-3. I think that's fine. But I think I like a 3-5-2 better. And you can play Reyna or right underneath whoever we decides the 9. You could play Reyna or Pulisic, or you could play Pulisic as the 9 and play Reyna underneath him. I mean, Pulisic's had to do that with Chelsea for a number of games this season. When he replaced Werner, he's played that position off and on. They'd shift him back and forth, blah, 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 but he did play the 9. So I think there's so much talent here that you actually can do something different for the first time.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that.
I think the concept of the 4-3-3 and isolating Reyna and Pulisic out wide just does not play to their benefits.
No, it's too easy to defend.
Yeah.
It's too easy to defend it because it's too predictable. And that's been Greg's big problem. And the great thing that he avoided last night was actually being so over predictable, because had he been totally predictable, I think that Tata could have figured it out earlier, but he was like, oh shit, they're playing the same formation we are. Okay, what am I going to do? And it took Tata too long to put Lannis in to overwhelm Ream. And Ream was already kind of overwhelmed to begin with, but when you put Lannis in with that speed, well, that was a telltale sign. Ream needed to go. He needed to be pulled immediately and put somebody who's quicker. Now, he waited until Lannis scored a goal, Greg did, before pulling him out.
Well, I mean, in fairness, that was like his first touch of the game, maybe his second touch. So, I mean, unless Berhalter saw him getting subbed in, he should have been, already getting the sub ready to come in to replace him. But it was like his second touch of the game.
As soon as Lannis gets up off the bench and starts warming up, I'm pulling Ream immediately. I'm pulling him.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying that he'd have to have been alert, paying attention to it, rather than reacting. And quite frankly, going back to the team, I thought that in this game, at least in the initial 25, 30 minutes or so, even just off the ball movement, I felt that the United States were a little more reacting rather than acting. So like somebody would make a nice play and then try to slip the ball, but the person wouldn't take off running until after they pass the ball, or somebody's going up for a slip header and then they don't start running until the slip header occurs.
Yeah.
Nobody's acting ahead of time. They're not planning it 2 or 3 moves ahead. They're planning the next touch. And
so this is a great point. That's a great point, because this game really didn't come down to like two teams playing their best games, because we didn't. It was just about fight and sort of grit. And this is the first.
Piss and vinegar, yep.
Exactly. This is the first time I watched a Berhalter team outside of Guest, who was pulled, that had like grit, and they were going to fight until the end. They were going to battle. They did not get down when they were losing, or even after the first goal. They didn't like start getting frumpy or pissy and start yelling at each other. They were a team for the first time tonight or last night. And they did that. That made me feel good, because maybe that means some of the criticism that some of us are throwing at them, they've heard it or they've seen it with their own eyes. Greg's seen it with his own eyes, or his assistants have seen it with their own eyes and said, This kind of attitude cannot continue. We've got to be the United States of America and fight for every ball. So we saw some of that last night that we hadn't seen before, an energy we hadn't seen before.
And I thought one thing that was nice that they finally recovered on from U.S. teams of old is you get into those crunching tackles. You get in Mexico's head as far as, you know, they get up there and they start confronting you. Well, you know, you shove back and you're getting into this huge kerfuffle back and forth, but you're not backing down and you're constantly getting up there in their faces. What that's going to do is that's going to make them a little chippier next time in the tackle, and then they're going to start doing stupid fouls. They're going to start reacting differently, making poor passes. You know, I thought that was a great thing to see. Just again, the piss and vinegar. You know.
Yeah, and you could tell this game meant a lot to all of the American kids on the team, the younger ones, and we won't get into Brooks being like this major spine backbone right now, but he was the backbone in the back three. But then we get into the cards that were not given necessarily in Herrera's case.
Ooh, yeah.
I thought that was a huge deal. But then also the calls by the referee, who was really entertaining. I mean, he makes the biggest window when he uses the VAR to come back on the field to give you the decision. I mean, that's the biggest window I have ever seen a ref make.
Extremely flamboyant and into. It's like, oh, look at this, the VAR window, bam, PK.
And his name was Pete, and he is from, I believe, Costa Rica.
Panama.
No, Panama. You're right, Panama. And maybe that's a thing in Panama. Referees are really like out there, you know, and maybe he does this massive square window every time he goes to VAR. But it was great. I didn't think either of the free kicks were free kicks. I didn't necessarily think Pulisic. I don't know. I mean, to me, that was on the edge.
I'm a little biased, obviously. He kind of got sandwiched in there, and the Mexican defender did get a touch on the ball, but it was that left leg that went across his body. I mean, I saw that as a foul. I'm personally biased in this situation, so of course it was a foul, and it wasn't a handball.
I fucking celebrated it. So believe me, I took it, and I was happy about it. But I didn't think it was really because it wasn't called on the field. That was something VAR came down and said, you need to look at this. And then he went and looked at it, and he's like, oh, yeah, I made an egregious error. I didn't think he made an egregious, because that's supposed to be the bar. You have to have made an obvious error. I didn't think that error was obvious. And in the second one, I didn't think that was obvious either. I thought he made the right call the first time by not calling it, because there's no way McKenzie could have gotten his hand out of the way. It was like, bam, split second.
And that seems to be the MO for PKs against US in this window. But quite frankly, I thought that the ref let the game play. He wasn't overly call happy. He held off in throwing out cards. He didn't want to make whether he didn't want to make or he didn't want to intervene on questionable calls in the box for PKs until VAR intervened. That seemed apparent. Now, again, I'm biased towards Pulisic, and I saw the foul. If I was a Mexican fan, I'd probably be like, that was perfectly fine. That was a legal, tackle. The handball was ridiculous. He had great view of it on field, and then I still feel like he went to VAR and he did not want to come back with the dying seconds of the game and simply say, nah, that wasn't a handball.
No, he was a coward. He'd already given us sort of a freebie, he thought. So to balance it out, he had to give them a freebie too. And they just didn't capitalize on it.
Nope. Horvath came through in the end.
I know. We'll get to Horvath in a second. But let's be really honest here. Herrera should have gotten 2 yellow cards for his tackles and another yellow card for grabbing McKennie by the neck. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's 3 yellow cards. The dude should have been out of the game. And the ref was very lenient towards his tackles and his behavior, and McKennie did not even, react to the neck grab. So to me, it all ended the way it should have, because they should have.
I
down
thought
to
the
10.
Acosta yellow was a bit harsh. You know.
Yeah, I think
he went on a crunch. It was a foul. He went on a tackle, but then there was again the kerfuffle, and then all of a sudden he got pushed around, and the ref pulled him aside and gave him a yellow card. I thought he was like, "What? Really? That was me?" But I don't know. Again, I like the fact, especially in the U.S. Mexico game, that the game was let played. Now there are definitely some go-to calls like we had brought up that should have been yellows or should have been called, but the fact that it was a chippy game and the fact that it was gritty, I think it just made the game more enjoyable to watch rather than a constant. Well, you touched him, that's a foul, and you know what? I know it's third minute into the game, but here's a yellow card. You know.
Speaking of yellow cards, John Brooks got his in the 10th minute and played the rest of the game with a yellow card. Amazing. Mm-hmm. That fucker is such a professional. He deserves to have a medal pinned on him. He seriously does.
I feel like his yellow came from his interaction with the ref just before that foul occurred, even, and then the foul occurred, and then he, like, oh, you gotta be kidding me, and then poop, yellow,
Yeah, that was
talking a little bit too much there. I can't fault him for it. I was guilty of that.
Yeah, me too. I was a big mouth. So Horvath, as you pointed out, we're not giving ratings right now, but that guy was amazing. God. And Club Brugge, you're going to lose him because he's a free agent. So suck it, because Mignolet is an old man now, and now you don't have one of a very, very, very good goalkeeper who's going to get signed by somebody decent and hopefully get lots of playing time. And Julio Campos, we were not wrong about having doubts about Horvath, who has barely played for 2 years. There's nothing wrong with us having doubts about a player that doesn't hardly play for 2 years. So you can suck it too. All right? Suck it, Julio Campos. We were not criticizing Horvath's skill as a player. We just doubted that his lack of playing time would have left him rather stale. But go ahead, Brett. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, that covered a lot of Horvath. I mean, he had a great game. Came through in a clutch, like, what was it, like in the 70th minute he came in, 60th minute area. Regardless, he came in cold, made a couple key saves, and then had the PK save. Just a phenomenal game. And after the Swiss game, which was also a very phenomenal game, the funny thing is teams will start come knocking for him, and it's not because of his club play.
No, it's not. It's because of what he's done with the United States men's national team.
Yep.
He's also ingrained himself as a U.S. men's national team legend.
Yep.
Because people who watched that game last night are not going to forget that.
Yep.
Whenever he's not starting from here on out, you're going to hear this all over social media. Where's Horvath?
Yeah, why isn't Horvath?
What about Horvath?
And you know what? They've got a point now.
They do.
I mean, I don't think Stefan didn't have any issues in the game. I thought he played well, but quite frankly, Horvath has come up key on a number of plays.
Horvath is better with his feet.
Yeah.
He's just a better passer. He's better dribbling. He's better looking for the open man. Stefan struggled. I mean, there were times in the first half where I was like, "Holy shit, what is he doing back there?"
There were a number of long kicks that went straight out of bounds the past couple of games.
Yeah. And that's not acceptable.
That has to change. Yeah, that has to change.
That's not acceptable in the modern game. That might have been acceptable 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and maybe even 10. Because people just ask you to be a great stopper of shots, which Stefan is. But now, especially the way Berhalter wants to play, Horvath's a better option. I can't believe I'm saying it.
I was just about to say, quick question. If it was a competitive game tomorrow, who would you start?
Horvath.
I would have to agree with you on this.
Yep. I mean,
mind you, the reason Stefan can't play tomorrow is because of his knee, but
yeah. Can I say this one more time? Club Brugge, suck it, you fucking morons. You just lost one of the better goalkeepers out there. So you can have an old man play goalkeeper for you. All right. Moving on. Why no Musa? That's a common question that I got. Why no Musa? I don't know, Brett. It's something stinky.
It's beyond me. It is insane to think that in these 3 games, we saw more from Yule, Acosta, and Leggett, and didn't see Musa. In fact, I think we saw more of Adams than Musa.
Yes, because at least Adams got to play starting in the 82nd minute of last night.
Guaranteed him at least 50 minutes.
The field.
Did Musa play against Swiss? I think he got like 10 or 15 minutes.
But it's a friendly. You can't cap tie him in a.
That's just absolutely insane. Unless there's a reason. I'm not
saying
there is, but
Musa's having second thoughts.
Oh, you know what though? He had posted a picture on Twitter or Instagram or something. Holding the trophy and kissing. And I mean, generally speaking, unless you're feeling some form of connection to the team, why would you ever celebrate their win? So I don't think that's the case. So I just don't understand what could be the reason behind it.
So here's something. I went and did some research and read some Spanish articles, sports articles, soccer articles. And yeah, I mean, Musa's really had a downturn in the last half of the season. I noticed it too because I track every single American eligible player abroad. And I noticed he was getting less and less playing time. He was riding pine. Sometimes he wasn't even on the 18. And I thought, wow, what's going on with this guy? Apparently, it's sort of a consensus that he's been a little out of form. So maybe Greg's right. I still would have given him 2 minutes somewhere to cap tie him. Maybe that's not a worry for Berhalter. Maybe he feels like Moose is firmly committed and that he can wait for him to get back in form. If that's the case, okay, Greg, more power to you.
Yeah.
So then it comes to the other question people have had. How come Adams, if he's healthy, why didn't he start? Well, he must not have been that healthy because Greg didn't want to start him because that means he would have got, a lot of time, and Greg just wasn't sure how healthy Adams was. That would be my guess.
You could look at it a different way and say he could be healthy. He could have been ready to start, but your first start in 2 months or whatever.
Yep.
Being against Mexico, so maybe not necessarily a healthy status, but necessarily a game match fit status.
Again,
you put him in early and let him run himself out, and then throw Acosta in the game when you possibly need to get a point or a win, a goal for the win, or do you bring him in late in the game hoping that we've kept the ball out of the goal, or we've kept the ball out of our own net?
I mean, you and I are not Berhalter apologists, but I have to say what he did made sense. There's a guy that hasn't been playing for 2 months. His name is Tyler Adams. Do you just start him right out of the gates against Mexico? No.
A rough welcome home party.
Yeah, that would have been really rough.
If I was Tata, I would have been telling everybody to go at him.
Now, I would have put him in the 72nd minute, but he put him in the 82nd, and guess what? He played great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Brooks could finally take a breather, have a breath, because he had somebody in front of him he could depend on. And Adams did amazing for the time period that he played.
Just the energy he brought covering that entire back line and the ability to progress forward and make the passes moving out of the back. It was night and day. And quite frankly, I feel like every show we're bagging on Acosta, but it's no comparison at all.
There isn't.
And I don't think anybody can make the argument, but there's no comparison. And it was blatantly obvious when the sub occurred, not necessarily to take out Acosta, but when Acosta moved back to left back for taking over for Ream, and Adams was included into that number 6 role, more or less. It was just painfully obvious that we definitely missed him and we need him back.
Yeah. And before we end this segment, because segment 2 is going to be player ratings, the funniest quote my mom had last night is one of the commentators said, well, Serginho Dest has been quite quiet tonight. My mom yelled, he hasn't been quiet. He's been useless.
My favorite quote of the night was from Dempsey in the pregame when he was talking about the U.S. against Honduras, and he goes, "It's not like the U.S. were pulling up trees against Honduras."
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, wait a second, what does that mean?
And just so everybody, I love that. So everybody knows, we're going to cover rankings in part 2 and part 3. We'll talk about some of the peripheral things around the game, including fan behavior, etc. So stay tuned. This is going to be a 3-part series. It was a big game. It was a big win for us. So no, we're not taking a big dump on Berhalter tonight because, hey man, he won
He was
the
our
trophy.
best defender. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. He also has a pretty nice dodgeball toss too.
Yeah.
We'll get into that as well. All right. Until the next time on the Straight Red Card, good night. We'll see you down the road. Drink up.